In this guide, we will start with a short primer on the starting kit of the Scholar, followed by going over all of the actions learned from level 30 to 50 in order. We will go over how each action is meant to be used and, when applicable, the recommended way to use it. Please refer to the video in the top right corner for more detailed explanations of role actions specifically. Let's start with your attacking spells. Bio 2 and Ruin make up your offensive toolkit at level 30. Bio 2 is an instant damage over time effect, or DOT for short, while Ruin is a casted instant damage spell. In combat, you want to apply Bio 2 to as many targets as you can, as long as they will live at least 12 seconds. After that, you repeatedly cast Ruin on something. Naturally, healing takes priority over attacking, so both of these spells take a backseat if anyone in your party needs significant healing. For healing, let's focus on your own options first. I will be comparing healing spells throughout this video based on mana efficiency and time efficiency. Imagine it like a car. Mana efficiency is gas efficiency, how far you get to drive on a tank, while time efficiency is how fast you can drive. In most cases, speed is key, but in certain situations, efficiency is more important. It is up to you to identify when you need to be efficient with your mana. Physic functions as an efficient heal for when someone just needs some healing now. Aetherflow heals for slightly less than Physic, but also applies a shield on the target for 125% of the healing it did. It also adds another identical shield on top of that if the Aetherflow heal was a critical hit, which can be life-saving, but random, so don't rely on it. Scholar shields do not stack, so if you need to heal someone a lot, applying Aetherflow and then using Physic is often better than spamming either one. Aetherflow also costs a lot of mana, so you should only use it if you either know your target will take further damage and spend the shield, or if you're uncertain they will survive without it. Resurrection brings a dead player back to life. Be aware that it costs a lot of mana and takes ages to cast, so make sure to pair it with the role action Swift Cast, which makes your next spell instant. When a player is resurrected, they lose some of their primary attribute, like strength, for a while, resulting in doing less damage. This is a minor issue, and more importantly, when a player is resurrected, they are completely impervious to damage and most knockback effects for 5 seconds, unless they do anything other than movement. Using sprint also counts as doing something other than movement. Izuna is a role action that removes a single removable negative effect, commonly called a debuff, from a single target. Removable debuffs have a bluish-white line over them to indicate this. Lucid Dreaming helps you immensely with mana regeneration by nearly doubling your mana regeneration over time, so use it often. Whenever you are below 7000 mana is a good time to use it. If you're interested, both of these abilities are described in greater detail in the role action video in the top right corner. Now, let's talk about your pets. Summon Eos and Summon Selene summons two visually different but functionally identical pets. Choose whichever you like best. I prefer Selene myself. Your pet will automatically cast Embrace for a decent amount of healing every 3 seconds on whoever both needs healing and has the lowest amount of health. As long as only your tank is taking damage, this typically means you will only heal your tank. An advanced technique that can be immensely useful to start practicing early on is manually moving your pet. Under the Pet tab in the Orders section of your actions and traits, you will find the options Place and Heal. You can use Place to, for instance, place your pet in the center of a boss room to maximize the ability for your pet to heal whoever needs it. You can also use it to move your pet to reach players that are otherwise out of your reach, which can even be done while you're standing still casting something else. Heal is useful to bring her back to you when needed or once fighting ends. If you place your pet somewhere, she will not come to you even if you run much too far away. She will instead disappear, so you have to re-summon her. Additionally, you have the ability Whispering Dawn. This action orders your pet to use, well, Whispering Dawn, which in an area of effect, or AoE for short, applies a heal over time effect, HOT for short, to everyone in your party that is in range. This makes it especially important to position your pet if you want to optimize it. Be aware that if your pet is following you, she will specifically stop to cast Whispering Dawn at the exact location you stood when you ordered it. If you order her to move somewhere and then order Whispering Dawn before she reaches her destination, she will still finish the movement action and then execute Whispering Dawn. You want to use Whispering Dawn as your first choice when AoE damage is taken. You can also use it if the tank is taking a lot of damage, as the healing of Whispering Dawn overtakes Embrace within 2 ticks, 6 seconds, so that cast is worth it to help you save the tank in a tough spot. Telling your pet to move around does not impede on her ability to cast Embrace every 3 seconds, as it is an instant cast. Because your pet will automatically heal players every 3 seconds, it is in your best interest to let her do her thing for the most part, and only if necessary, assist in topping players off. Don't let players die, and don't let players drop dangerously low. Just make sure that your pet always has something to do, as she does not start attacking if everyone's healthy. Before moving on to new spells and abilities, let's briefly cover weaving. Abilities are distinctly different than spells in that they can be used during your global recast timer, while spells cannot. If you use an instant cast spell, you have time to use up to 2 abilities without impeding on your spell casting. For instance, this means you can use Whispering Dawn after applying Bio 2 with no issue, but trying to do the same after Ruin will delay your next spell after that. It is always more time efficient to weave abilities after instant spells rather than regular casted spells. You can learn more about weaving and much more in the video in the top right corner. Now then, at level 35 you learn the spell Succor. This action is an AoE alternative to Adlocuium. Assuming the shields get put to use for both spells, Succor is both more powerful and more efficient than Adlocuium if at least 2 targets get the full benefit. If Adlocuium critically hits, Succor is better on 3 targets. The important aspect is whether the shields get spent before they run out. Assuming the shields get spent, Succor is more time efficient than Physic at any number of targets. If the shields don't get spent, which is more common with AoE shielding spells, Succor is more time efficient than Physic on 3 or more targets. Succor is more mana efficient than Physic on 3 targets if the shields get spent, and 6 targets if they don't. At level 38 you learn the spell Ruin 2. Confusingly, Ruin 2 is not an upgrade of Ruin 1. In fact, Ruin 2 does slightly less damage than Ruin 1. The advantage of Ruin 2, however, is that it is instant. The damage loss of using Ruin 2 instead of Ruin 1 is so negligible that if you need to weave abilities, you can always just use Ruin 2 instead. It also serves as a great option for movement if you already applied Bio 2 to all targets. At level 40, you learn the ability Fey Illumination. This action orders your pet to execute, well, Fey Illumination. A moment after issuing the order, your pet will cast this, which a moment later will apply the buff to party members nearby. This stacked delay upon delay is important because this buff increases healing done of those affected and reduces magic damage taken. This means that you can use it to help heal back up after a big hit, but at the same time also reduces raid-wide damage taken, assuming the hit is magical. Raid-wide AoE damage is more often magic damage than physical damage, so it is not a bad choice to use it if you don't know for certain. Just keep in mind that it can take a few seconds before the buff is applied to everyone from the moment you press the button. This delay also applies to Whispering Dawn, although the exact timing of that ability is significantly less crucial. At level 45 you get access to 3 Aetherflow related actions. First, Aetherflow itself is an ability that restores some mana and gives you 3 uses of Aetherflow, shown in the Aetherflow gauge. The minute cooldown starts ticking once you use it, so you effectively get 3 Aetherflow uses per minute, with the timer only starting again once you request another 3 uses. You always want to make sure to use your 3 Aetherflow uses before the timer is up, such that you never miss out on the mana you gain, as well as extra uses of the powerful abilities that require Aetherflow. Your first Aetherflow ability is Lustrate, which is a powerful instant heal. Once you have this, you can much more easily risk waiting longer with assisting your pet in healing, since you can always catch your tank with Lustrate when you need to. You can also pair Lustrate with Isuna in situations where, for instance, you need to remove a dangerous debuff, but also need to heal your target. I mention Isuna because it and Physic are the only healing spells in your arsenal with cast times short enough to allow for weaving. Lustrate should be your primary spender for Aetherflow at these levels. Your second Aetherflow ability is Energy Drain. This action does some damage, heals you a small amount, and grants you 500 mana. This Aetherflow ability is used as a venting option if you cannot find targets for Lustrate before the cooldown is up on Aetherflow. Just keep in mind that Energy Drain has a short cooldown, so try to space out the uses of Aetherflow throughout the minute so you don't end up having to do 3 Energy Drains back to back. Sometimes, if you're extremely low on mana for some reason, using Energy Drain to recover mana is also an option. Just remember that Lustrate is much more mana efficient than Physic and Adlocuium, and by default also more time efficient too. At level 46, you learn the spell Art of War. This action does just as much damage as Ruin 2, but in an area around you. If there are 2 targets in a fight, this is your best attacking option by far, only bested by Bio 2. On 3 or more targets, Art of War is your best attacking option with no contest. The fact that it is instant also means you have much easier access to all of your ability based options. When spamming this spell, you should consider using Lucid Dreaming when below 8000 mana, slightly sooner than usual because of the high mana usage of Art of War. At level 50, you learn the ability Sacred Soil. This action is another Aetherflow option that places down a large dome in an area of your choosing. All players in the area take 10% less damage. You should use this when you anticipate large AoE damage incoming, or if you measure that the incoming damage is large enough that the damage reduction is more helpful than the healing of Lost Rate or the mana gain from energy drain. Later on, this ability also does healing in its radius, which makes it your best default option as an Aetherflow spender for all things except movement. To round off, let's first cover attack rotations and then healing practices. I will preface by saying that keeping your party alive is always more important than your damage output. For single target, keep Bio 2 active on your target and use Ruin 1 when you can stand still and attack, and Ruin 2 if you have to move. Weave abilities after Bio 2 casts or Ruin 2 casts to optimize your time efficiency. Remember to use Lucid Dreaming to keep your mana up. For 2 targets, keep Bio 2 active on both targets and then use Art of War. Remember to use Lucid Dreaming as Art of War is very expensive. For 3 or more targets, just use Art of War repeatedly. Again, I emphasize that Art of War is rather expensive, so remember to use Lucid Dreaming regularly. Keep in mind that Energy Drain is an attacking option you can use to spend your Aetherflow if you cannot find reasons to use your defensive options in time. For healing, let's go over your options. If a player is actively taking damage and you need to heal them, consider using Adlocurium. If instead they are low and need healing but won't be taking significant damage in the future, just heal them with Physic to be safe. Keep in mind that if they're not likely to take damage for a while, your pet can likely deal with the issue over time. For large amounts of healing or saving actions, use Lost Rate. Keep in mind you only get 3 of them per minute, so use them accordingly. For AoE healing, prioritize using Whispering Dawn before resorting to Succor, as Succor is very weak in terms of raw healing. In fact, depending on the number of players that need healing, sometimes your best option can be resorting to using Physic on them one by one. Although, if this is necessary, it is likely that damage is incoming, so the shield from Succor will probably also help. For literal damage reduction, remember that you have Fey Illumination to both reduce magic damage taken and also increase the healing done afterwards. You also have Sacred Soil, which, at the cost of Aetherflow, can reduce all damage by a decent amount. Just remember that Sacred Soil comes at a cost, so it is not always better than using the Aetherflow for healing. Use Aetherflow, the ability itself, on cooldown. It is on you to make sure you spend the Aetherflow uses on time. If you have not used them in time, you should of course delay the ability Aetherflow and spend the uses as quickly as possible, like on Sacred Soil and Energy Drain. Use it sooner to remove dangerous or annoying debuffs when you see the bluish-white bar indicating a removable debuff. Again, remember to use Lucid Dreaming to keep your mana up. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions or considerations, please leave a comment down below. Fun fact, before Shadowbringers, Selene and Eos only had Embrace in common. Eos had Whispering Dawn and 2 separate spells that were combined to make Fey Illumination. Selene instead had an Interrupt, an AoE Asuna, and an AoE attack speed buff. Despite these ludicrous options from Selene, the AoE healing capabilities of Eos typically made her the preferred choice.